What's up, fellow filmmakers? Today, we're gonna be taking this to that. So recently, my filmmaking career has taken a giant unexpected leap, which has forced me into a lot of learning curves that I did not expect. So one of the things that I've really been trying to learn more about lately is lighting and how to properly light a scene, how to properly light an interview, and can you achieve really good professional $1,000 looks for only 50 bucks. So starting off, I went to Walmart, picked up a shower curtain, some clamps, some clamp lights, some different colored bulbs, and also used this little dinky practical light that I found laying around my house. Now I decided to put these $10 lights, if you will, up against some of the equipment that I use in my own projects. So the first thing that I did was find an interesting frame. So there were a couple things I was looking for. One, I needed visual interest. Two, I needed depth. And three, I needed some leading lines. So once I found my frame, I placed my subject and my camera. Step one. For lighting, I like to go ahead and turn off all the lights around the area. This allows me to see kind of what the background will look like when it's darkened out. Once everything is off, I'm gonna add my own lights. But there's a catch to this. I want to try and figure out where the light in the scene would naturally come from, and I want to see what color temperatures those light would naturally look like. So for instance, like this window behind me, that's going to be a different color temperature than a bathroom light or a hallway light. Catch my drift? Moving forward. So the first thing that I saw is I actually had a practical light in the scene already, but it wasn't quite bright enough for my liking. So I went ahead and switched that out with a practical little dinky rinky thing. Now this look is pretty interesting because you see this a lot of times if you're trying to conceal the subject's identity, whether it be some mass murderer that's in jail and can't be, for whatever reason, seen on TV as if that's some big deal, which it might be, I don't know actually. I probably should not talk about things I don't know anything about, but anyways, you get the gist. I now note that the light is falling on the left side of my subject. So what does that mean? Well, I'm gonna use that to inspire the key light. So basically, it's giving a reason for the light on my actor's face. So what I did was take one of my clamp lights and put it on a stand, just attached it. You can do this on a table or whatever you have access to, and popped a bulb in there and turned it on. But the next thing I noticed was I needed to soften up that light, obviously. So I went and took the shower curtain and hooked it up with some clamps in front of it, and that softened it up nicely. The next step was to shape the light. I was getting a lot of spill on the background that I did not want. I wanted that separation, I wanted that contrast. So I went ahead and took some tin foil and we cut that up, placed it on the side of the clamp light, and it actually did a very good job. Now a lot of times I would use black wrap for this, but I thought maybe tin foil would be a good substitute because it's basically the same material, it's just reflective, unlike black wrap. So now at this point I have a key light and I have a practical inspiring my key light. The next thing that I wanted to focus on was an edge light. This will further separate your subject from the background. It isn't always needed, but I personally like them, so I went ahead and put one in. What I did for this is take the clamp light and put it on the cabinets behind him, and it worked pretty well. It actually served two ways. It gave me an edge on my subject, but it also gave a little bit of extra ambient light in the background, which I actually dug. Now here is a workable image. I can use this, but I'm not getting a lot of color contrast that I originally was intending on getting, so I went ahead and pushed a little bit further. This is where the different colored bulbs come in. So I went ahead and tossed a red bulb in my practical back there. If you wanted to, you could also change the color of your key light because of course you're trying to inspire that light, but that's not necessary. At this point, I'm just playing off the fact that maybe that light is coming from a different room or a hallway or a nearby source of light. With the red look, it looked okay, but it wasn't necessarily giving me the option that I wanted. So I went ahead and popped a blue one in there. Personally, I think that this setup would be usable in any project I've made so far. So $10 lights, you can actually create a setup that looks good and will satisfy your client. So I just kept the same setup, backed up to step one, all the lights off, inserted the practical. Now I was gonna use a softbox that I have to give our key light. But I wanted to add a second practical in the scene. So I went ahead and rigged up this tiny little LED up to the cabinets behind him to make it look like some sort of light was coming off a coffee maker or something of that sort. The reason I did this was I wanted to give more of a color contrast in the background, but also give my edge and my key light a practical explanation for their color temperatures. Once I add my edge, there's an inspiration from the practical to the edge light. So both of my lights are inspired and both of my lights make sense. So this is not going to be super distracting for the audience, even though honestly I don't think I've ever been distracted by lighting. That's just what I hear. But what do I know? I probably know nothing. I might be rambling on about something that you think I have no clue about, and I might not have any clue about it because I possibly could not know what I'm talking about, and so could you, or you could not. So who is to say whether I do or do not know? If I did, what I can if I don't know. But if I didn't know, then moving on. So of course contrast brings clarity, and as you can see, these two shots are very similar. One with $10 lights, one with about $1,000 worth of lighting equipment. But really the key difference is control here. So when you think about expensive versus affordable lighting, the only difference is the ease of access to control. Moving on to another example, I wanted the absolute, there's a cat meowing at me and I don't like it. Well, don't shut the door. Come on. Ah, no. Kitty. Ah, that's enough. So moving on to another example of what my process is like. I wanted this one to be less of an interview and more of a film, short film, feature film kind of shot, but I also wanted it to be as bland as possible so that I would have to manipulate the scene as much as I could to make it less bland and less flat and less boring. I put my subject on a couch that's all the way back up against the wall, no lights whatsoever, curtains are all shut, and it looked like trash. The first thing I noticed was I am not getting a lot of depth here, and there's a couple reasons for that. One, my couch is way too close up against the wall, so I went ahead and pulled that out a little bit. This did two things, gave me more depth and allowed me to see more of the room. Next thing I did was turned off all the lights and opened up the back window. I'm gonna use the back window as my practical for this setup. So now that I have my practical, I need some motivated light in there. So I'm gonna use my practical as the inspiration and drop a darkish grayish blue in the arena and face it in such a way that it looks like it's emitting from the background window. Now this is really cool, and if you wanted a moody look like this, toss on the color grade and bam. But I was not satisfied with this, so I kept moving. The next thing I did was added a second practical because I wanted a little bit more color contrast in the scene. So I went ahead and popped that up, same one as before. It looks pretty good. Now this gave kind of a whitish edge on our character, which I thought looked pretty cool. We are mostly edge lit right now. So I went ahead and pretended, well, what do you do on a couch? You watch TV. Well, some people do. I don't personally watch TV, but a lot of people do. So, but he's on a couch, so boom, there's the TV. I went ahead and took my softbox and bounced it off the wall and a shower curtain to give a really soft light, and I shook it around to give this animated look to the light itself. And it ended up working pretty well. Now, of course, it was pretty loud. So when you're filming, you might not want to roll sound for these unless you have a different method of doing this, but it worked out pretty well overall. Now after this, I varied it up a little bit with some different colored bulbs in my practical, but it's honestly all down to creativity and preference. I just used the equipment that I had in this example, and like I said, that's only like $1,000 worth of stuff. I have 2 C-stands, a couple of RGB LED panels, and a couple of softboxes, and really that's all I got. But that doesn't mean that you have to have that to do this, and I think we just proved that. But also, it's not like I have thousands of dollars worth of equipment anyways. So really guys, it all comes down to just the easiness that you can access that control over the light. But that doesn't mean that you can't do it with cheaper setups. So really what I want you guys to take away from this is don't get caught up not creating beautiful scenes because you don't have an RE kit or you don't have quasars or whatever it is that you don't have that you need. Just go out there with what you've got and learn how to use it to the best of your ability so that when you get the chance to use that expensive equipment, you will be so much better at it. Anyways, guys, I hope you enjoyed this episode and hopefully you learned something from it. If you did, that's great. If not, that's fine too. Honestly, I'm by no means the most professional filmmaker or cinematographer out here, and I don't know everything. I'm not the best at everything, and I know that. What I want to do with this channel is share what little information that I have with as many of you as possible, because let's face it, that's the most important asset that a filmmaker has is knowledge. Knowledge and experience. And if you're watching this and you're like, wow, this dude has no clue what he's talking about, well, you might be right. But there is no but. You might be right. But maybe I do. I don't know. Who knows? I don't. All I know is what I know, and I don't know what I don't know. So if you know what I don't know, then how could you possibly not know what I know? You don't. You couldn't. So therefore, take it with a grain of salt. That got a little confusing, but for those of you who followed it, you know what I'm talking about. Well, anyways, guys, until next time, it's your boy Ethan from Filmfluence. Thank you so much for watching. I don't know what we're gonna do on this channel, but I have hope and faith that there will be some good stuff in the future. In the meantime, special thanks to AGTV and Transition Studios. These guys are amazing guys. They're producing some quality content, and I wouldn't be where I'm at without them. Bye. 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 Bye.
Right there. That's a box with a bunch of electronics in it. Right there. That's some flesh with organs in it. Some random organisms. I don't know what I'm saying.